Namaste and greetings. I, Riya Rawat, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Learning. Today marks the 8th day of the Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship Cohort 2.0 with the theme Getting Foothold in Politics, Governance and Gainful Employment, a Gender Lens. This is an online national winter school program, a 4-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program spanning from January to April 2025. This program is organized by IMPRI, Gender Impact Studies Center. The chair for this program is Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI and a renowned advocate for gender equality and women's empowerment, while the co-chair is Professor M. Indira ji, former professor of economics at the Department of Studies in Economics and Corporation, University of Mysore. We will today explore the theme of women in agriculture and sunrise sector platform-based gig jobs. The discussion will examine the participation of women in agriculture and emerging job sectors, addressing their contributions, challenges, and structural barriers affecting their workforce engagement. It will also highlight policy measures and strategies to enhance gender inclusivity and equitable opportunities in these fields. We are honored to have Professor Alka Parikh ji, Director Center for Field Learning, as our esteemed speaker for this session, and Professor Vibhuti Patel ji and Professor M. Indra ji guiding today's session. The panel of conveners for this program comprises Dr. Simi Mehta ji, Dr. Arjun Kumar ji, Professor Gumadishri Devi ji, and Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ji. Before we begin, here are some few housekeeping announcements. Please join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions on the Q&A box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise and please refrain from making general comments in the questions to save time. Now, without further ado, let us start our program. I would now like to invite our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, to deliver the opening remarks.
You're welcome an introduction. First of all, welcome Professor Alka Parikh for this 8th day of our course. And thank you, Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Dr. Kumari Sridevi, Dr. Shalo Nigam for convening this course, and also the coordinators, Ms. Priya Kanegi, Vaishali Singh, Satyam Tripathi, Ritlak, Ritvika Malik, and Sweta Ashtaba Jadeja and Bhartiba Jadeja, and today's moderator, Riya Rawat, and esteemed participants. First of all, we would like to have a brief highlights of what all has transpired in the previous 7 days. We began the first day with a introduction of the course, and the vision, mission, goals, and objectives were explained by the chair, and keynote address was by Comrade Annie Raja, who told the whole history of women's getting foothold in the public life and political engagement. And she told the history of women's reservation in the local self-government bodies after 73rd and 74th amendments in the Constitution were made in 1994. And last 30 years, how women have done commendable work. But whenever they asked for ticket in their own party for legislative assembly or for the Lok Sabha election, they are always told that what they have done is a social work. It is not a political work. So women's work at local self-government bodies have had 6 rounds of women as an elected representatives who have done brilliant work for area development, for constituency development, but it is not even acknowledged by the leaders. And now the scenario will change. After 16 times the bill was introduced in the parliament, finally in September 2020. It was passed, and now from 2029, we will be having 33% representation of women in the upper echelons of power structure. After that, we had on day 2, we had Professor Vidyut Mohanty, who has dedicated 40 years of her life for capacity building and research and advocacy for women in the Panchayati Raj institutions. She spoke on the bursting the bubble of traditional leadership and women's leadership in grassroots politics in India, bottom-up initiative. And she said that despite so many hurdles and the weapon of no confidence motion being used by the Western interests, women in Panchayati Raj institutions have really done lot to attain practical gender needs, and she gave so many brilliant and inspiring examples of women who have done very useful and transformative work for their constituency. On day 3, we had Professor Chaitra Redkar, who spoke on the regional dynamics and women's political leadership with a special focus on Maharashtra's political scenario. She started with the formation of the state in 1960 as a result of the working class backed Samyukta Maharashtra movement. And after that, she said that despite the state being considered to be very progressive and industrially developed, we see that in the Legislative Assembly of Maharashtra, you hardly see any women's representation. It is highly inadequate. And she also talked about the question of even women in Panchayati Raj institutions. They also face so many hurdles because of the patriarchal biases. She gave some of the examples of attacks on women who are sarpanch or women pradhan. And she also talked about this edited volume by Bisakha Datta, where she said that, and who will make chapatis, a study of all women panchayats in Maharashtra, because Maharashtra is a state where over a dozen all women panchayats are there, where even in open seat women have been elected. The discussion was enriched by the intervention and study of experiences of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu by Professor Indira Mahendradeva. And also we had very lot of discussion from the participants who are also in they are a mid-career and they are also working in various fields, whether it is in corporate governance or in political sphere or as a journalist or as lawyers. On day 4, my presentation was on gender gap in the workforce participation in Indian economy, and we debated the major concern that recently we have had about decline as compared to so many other countries, why India has a less work participation and equal value for paid work or unpaid care work, recognition of unpaid care work, or changes in the gender norms to promote sharing of care work by men and women and all family members, universalization of healthcare with special emphasis on comprehensive and sexual and reproductive healthcare, and regularization of gig economy, workplace safety to prevent sexual harassment at the workplace, and universal social security, social protection, and the crashes for childcare, where several such issues came up even in the discussion. We had Professor Tara Nair's lecture on women's leadership in entrepreneurship, where she talked about the different types of entrepreneurship. And she said that she also asked a question that does gender affect entrepreneurship in a post-liberalized world? And she said that women scholars who have looked at business enterprises run by women and men have identified differences in the leadership style, motivation, vision, and ultimate goal. And she also brought out so many successful examples of women entrepreneurs when they are working in as a collective, and especially women from the marginalized section. She gave examples of work done by Self-Employed Women's Association, Jagori, Anandi in Gujarat, and also Annapurna Mahila Mandal. She also talked about the cooperative sector's successful models of in Mandesh Mahila Sahkari Mandli, and some of the FPOs, farm producers organizations, in certain parts they have succeeded. But at the same time, there have been so many schemes which have failed because of there is a no forward and backward linkages. On day 5, we had Professor Shashmita Palo, who spoke on navigating the leadership tightrope, evidence-based strategies for women's success. And she also talked about her study of a 16 study in which she found out that what kind of competencies are required for women to be successful in corporate governance. And she also stated that women take calculated risk when they are in enterprise. They are always cautious, and their leadership. She gave example of Miss Angela Merkel, and also quoted McKinsey report about unique strength of women leaders in industry. And still, women are underrepresented. What are the reasons, and how you can see the old boys club not allowing women to take a leadership role. She also gave examples of India, as well as several other European, American, and industrialized countries also, where you see that the women-only networks have worked. So it is very important that women get united, support each other, and strengthen each other. Day 6 was chaired by Professor M. Indira, and I request her to share the highlights of Day 6. She's there? Okay, then I'll go ahead. She has shared her highlights with me. So during 6-day meeting, Dr. Nivedita Haran, a retired IS officer and former additional chief secretary of Government of Kerala, shared her insights on the topics women's leadership as administrators in state governments and central government. She discussed various events and activities that have happened in the last 2-3 years and asked participants to note what they felt about each of them. And she also emphasized the need to look at what education system why is it failing to inculcate in our students that doesn't help them to become employment worthy or income earning worthy. She gave examples of pollution level in Dal Lake, housing scheme, digitization of land records, misuse of technology and migration, and violence in temporary shelters. She observed decentralization of implementation is very important, as we are good at planning but poor in implementation to take the plans to the last person. She quoted examples from Kerala to explain how social awareness and proactive people can make difference. The second speaker, Professor M. Indira, spoke on the gender parity in employment, starting with conceptual clarification about gender parity, gender discrimination, gender sensitive policies. She discussed the issues of gender discrimination in the workplace, particularly in India, and she highlighted that wage gap between men and women is not entirely due to differences in education or years of work, but due to unexplained factors which they termed and unwritten laws. And she emphasized the need to address these unexplained factors to reduce the wage gap. And she also discussed the importance of policies in facilitating interaction between households, markets, institutions to achieve gender equality and economic growth, and emphasize the need for gender sensitivity in recruitment policies to ensure equal opportunities to both men, women, and gender minorities, adhering to legal frameworks like Equal Remuneration Act, Sexual Harassment at Workplace, the Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act, and role of employers in affecting women's labor market participation was emphasized, with the professor suggesting that employers should focus on both broader ecosystem efforts and specific form that the shop floor level initiatives. She also presented findings from the survey conducted by India Women's Program and mechanism for implementing gender-sensitive recruitment policies such as blind recruitment, diverse hiring panels, gender-neutral job description, flexible work arrangement, proactive outreach to female women candidates, and training on gender bias and inclusive hiring practices they were suggesting. On day 7, we had Professor Samapti Guha, who has recently come out with a book on women entrepreneurs, and she talked about the limited evidences for women entrepreneurship that we have in our country. And she also said that we need to the representation of women entrepreneurs in the management in the industries, especially MSME, which is a very vibrant sector, that is very important. And she also said that despite holding leadership position in formal institutions like government, schools, women principals continue to face harassment from higher administrative authorities. So even when women are in higher bodies, they have this various ways in which disabling environment is created, and that is why collective effort of women is extremely important. And we had a next presentation by Professor Mani Meklai, who spoke on women workers in informal sector and women in the global workforce. She gave data from the gender World Economic Forum and gender parity data index, and she also talked about various limitations of the protective legislations in terms of reaching out to informal sector worker and the gig worker. She gave a special emphasis where we need a labor standards and the humane work condition. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And we are now honored to welcome Professor Alka Parikh ji, who will deliver the session on women in agriculture. She will offer valuable insights into the role of women in agriculture, exploring their contributions, challenges they face, and the pathways to greater empowerment in the sector. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Hello, I'm
Hello.
really honored that I have been invited to IMPRI, and I have both the learned professors, Professor Vibhuti Patel and Professor Indira, going to be here co-chairing the session. And as far as the participants are concerned, I might be asking you some comments or some questions in between, and you can answer that. And at the end of the session, I have kept my session slightly small so that we can have some discussion, because we have the person like Professor Vibhuti Patel, who has also worked in this field in a very extensive manner. So I thought that it would be nice to get her inputs also whenever the questions are asked. Maybe she can also add to the things while I am talking, because I would say that she has more experience in this field than me. So we would kind of keep the comments open for everyone, so that everyone can participate and give their answers also. Okay, so with that, I'll start my presentation. Just one moment. Oh my God. Just one moment, because I'm not very much used to this computer. I'm using somebody else's computer because mine was not working properly. Just one second. Okay, so we are going to talk about women in agriculture today. And let me tell you one thing, as the leaders of public policy, one sector in India that you need to actually concentrate a lot on is the sector of agriculture. And for that, let me just explain to you why I say so and kind of give you a context of what agriculture is all about as far as India is concerned. So, in 1947, when we got the freedom, 70% of Indian population was working in agriculture, and more than 50% of the national income was coming from agriculture. So India was basically an agrarian economy. Our major sector was agriculture in those days. Okay, then we progressed as a nation. And not all of you are economists, so that's why let me tell you one thing. Whenever a nation progresses, the composition of its sectors change. So as the nation develops, agriculture shrinks first. Then the industrial sector also shrinks, and the most important sector remains the service sector when a country is actually a developed nation. Okay, so India has also gone through this path. So, over a period of time, the contribution of agriculture in national income has been declining, as I said, happens with any developing economy. So, today, if you look, then the agriculture sector, which was contributing more than 50% of national income in 1950s, the contribution of agriculture has come down to 14%. And compared to that, the contribution of service sector has increased to almost 60%. So contribution of agriculture, as is always shown by the path of development, has reduced. What is worrisome as far as India is concerned is that the workforce that works in the agricultural sector has not declined that much. So from 70%, it has come down to about 50%, 47, 46 to 47% is what it has come down to. So imagine now 47% of Indian workers earning just 14% of national income. That gives you an idea of what a sad state of affairs agriculture is in right now.
Ma'am,
Because
sorry to interrupt. Are you sharing the screen? Please.
you can't see my screen.
No, I cannot.
Oh,
Should
I'm
I?
so sorry. I
Should I?
thought that. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let
Okay.
me just um, say share. I have not yet started my presentation. It is just on the cover page, but uh, it's not sharing it. So can you share it for
Yes.
me if you don't mind?
Yes. Is it the same one that you shared with us
Yes,
earlier?
exactly the same
Okay.
one. Yes, thank you very much. Can you share it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I am.
Yeah, we are just on the first cover page because I just want to give the background. Yes, there we go. Thank you so much. And you can keep it like this so that I can see the slides on the side also in case we want to move up and down, if I want to show something. So, yeah. So I was telling you that this is, yeah, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So what I was saying was that this is what agriculture has come to be today. Now, women in agriculture. How does that work out? So, one thing which you must know is that we have been collecting data on the Indian workers and what sector that they work in for many censuses now. Census is when you take the entire Indian population, you count every single person of India. That is census. Nothing else is census, and censuses are always counted in the first year of the decade. So it is 1971 census, 81 census, 91 census, like that. 2021 was the only year in which we haven't taken the census because there was COVID, as you all know. So it wasn't possible. Okay. But otherwise, the censuses are conducted. Now, one thing which I just want you to know is that when the census worker goes to the agricultural household and they ask them, the head of the household is, say, the man. So they ask the man that what is your main occupation? And the man would say agriculture. Okay, so what does your wife do? Oh, she just looks after the house. Now, this is where the problem is even today. Okay, and that's why a lot of agriculture economists who are women pointed out this fact over a period of time, over so many decades, saying that women in agriculture are invisible. We don't even know how many are working because they all help as the family. In agriculture, they take up a lot of load, but they are not counted. They are not counted as agricultural workers. So, to take the data from censuses, which is the most reliable way of collecting data about Indian population, even looking at census, you do not know how many women are in agriculture. This is the complexity of the problem that we are facing. Okay, so this is just the background of what agriculture is all about and what women in agriculture is all about. That agriculture is shrinking, the its contribution in national income is shrinking, but the workforce is not shrinking. So the workforce is not able to earn much, one, and two, that women in agriculture are contributing so much, but they are lot of times invisible. I'm not saying they're always invisible. All that I'm saying is that don't think that the data is accurate because it's not. Okay. So next slide, please. Yeah. So as I just said, about 45 to 50% of India's workers are in agriculture. Now, what I found really interesting. In last, as I said, 2021, the census was not counted. If you take the censuses of 1991 to 2011, you find that the number of women who are considered as farmers, who are part of the farmer household, and who say that their main occupation is agriculture, they used to be, that number used to roam around just 25%. Okay, 25% of the farmers. I'm not talking about the total Indian workforce. Okay, I'm talking about 25% of the farmers used to be women, and not that the land was in their name or anything, but they just said that my main occupation is farming and we own land. This is what 25% used to say. If you look at now, where there is no census, there are so many studies which are talking about the things, so this region, that region, and there are a lot of guesstimates. It has come to 48% of the farmers are women. So there is this huge jump. We don't know how accurate this data is, but there is one thing which we know for sure. The direction that the data is showing is actually correct, in the sense that number of women farmers compared to men has increased in agriculture. And why has it increased? The reason why it has increased is that, and this is another thing which you might have heard again and again, because it looks like you have been talked to by really great scholars, so you must have heard this before. Every time a new occupation which is more remunerative that comes up, men go and take it. And the women are left to look after the occupations that are less valued. So I just showed you that agriculture is becoming less profitable. Anything which becomes less profitable is not so very elitist, so very fashionable. So then those inferior so-called women workers will look after it, and the man will go for something which is more prosperous. Feminization of agriculture, please understand, is not celebration of womanhood. It is not. Feminization of agriculture is because women have been left behind to tend to an occupation which men find is becoming less and less profitable. Okay, so this is something which we need to understand, but at the same time, one more thing which you need to understand as the leaders who would be looking after public policy later, that farmer, when you say a farmer in India, the picture that comes to your mind is man with a plow. That's why I have put up this picture. If feminization of agriculture is happening, even if the number is not 48%, and even if the number is at 35%, we don't know right now, we will not come to know till the census happens. But if that is what is happening to our women, let's recognize that the farmer of India can look like this lady also. Okay, the farmer of India is not just the man with the plow. The farmer of India can be someone like this also. And every time we talk about public policy in agriculture, it's important that we remember this. Yes. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now another statistics, which once again, as I said, is not supported by census. It's always based on surveys and guesstimates. 80% of rural women workers are associated with agriculture or related sectors. Even if that number is, say, not very accurate, it might be 75%, it might be 79%, but a huge number of women. Some people say it is 90% also. So most of the women workers in India are in agriculture. So suddenly the importance of agriculture has declined as far as the male workers of India are concerned. Importance of agriculture has increased as far as the women workers of India are concerned. Okay, so and then the next thing that I've said, which I just explained to you, that here it says that 81% of the women workers are associated with agriculture. The number might be much more, but as I said, we don't know, because one, census is not conducted, and two, even when it is conducted, there is no guarantee that we would get very accurate numbers. Okay, we should always remember this as far as women workers are concerned, that they can be invisible. This is true not just about agriculture. This is true, you must have heard, in the informal sector also. So women workers are invisible in many places. Agriculture is one of them. Yes. Next slide, please. So when we say women work, farmers, when we don't say women workers in agriculture, but when we use the word women farmers, the women who are in the field of agricultural households and who are contributing to agricultural activities. So what kind of activities do the women indulge in? So one photograph that I have given on the right hand side, the upper one, is where the women are transplanting. Now, know this, the man, even today, when feminization of agriculture has happened, men always look after plowing of the field. So they might be using the bullocks, or they might be using some other animal that is prevalent in their region, or they might be using tractors, which is now generally the case in most parts of India. So they might be using the different equipment for doing the plowing of the field. Once the field is plowed, sowing is something in which they might help the women now and then. But transplanting, as you can see in this photograph, invariably is done by women. And trust me, it's a back-breaking work. Agreed that plowing requires more strength, and tractor, they do not give the skill to the women to actually operate. But transplanting is a very back-breaking work, very tedious work, and always done by women. Weeding is, once again, for decades, centuries, for all you know, is done by women. Weeding is where you take out all the other grasses and other plants so that your own plant can grow, and the other things are not taking away the nutrition which is supposed to be used by the plant. That is weeding. Once again, tedious work, but only women do this. Weeding is hardly ever done by men. Okay. Then harvesting. Harvesting is cutting. Women do it and men do it mainly if there is a harvester or thresher. If they are using harvester or thresher, if there is any machine used, even today, women do not do that. Women are not taught to do it. It's only the men who are taught to do it. So, harvesting with hands, like with a sickle, it's always done by the woman. Or if it is something like cotton picking or anything like that. So, those are the things which are done by women. And the if it is using some kind of a machine, then it is something which is done by men. Okay, winnowing. You see the picture on the right hand side, the leftmost picture where the woman is doing this. Cleaning of the harvested produce is invariably the woman's job. Okay, so that's what she is doing, and that's what she does for like tons of grains, tons. So that's another thing that the women do. And then the last photograph that you see on the right hand side, the last one with the huts on it, storing is also something which the women do. So when we are doing public policy, we should know what are the activities which are undertaken by women. And when we are talking about the better models of doing these things, we must remember that the trainees should be women and not men. It is extremely important to remember this. Okay. So another thing which you must know is that women spend the same time as men in agriculture. But one, they are invisible, they are not counted. In addition to spending so much time in agriculture, they undertake at least 4 more hours of household work that men don't. So the woman of the house is the first one to get up. Woman of the house is the last one to finish her work. And usually her day lasts for at least 15 to 16 hours. as opposed to men who usually work only for 8 to 10 hours. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, now agriculture and livestock are always interconnected and they are always considered as the same sector. So, as far as livestock is concerned, almost everything regarding the livestock is done by the women. Almost everything, except grazing. They don't take them out. But except for that, everything, cleaning of the animals and sheds, watering of cattle in the sense to give them water, milking the animals, fodder collection, as you can see is in this photograph, preparing dung cakes, as you can see in this photograph, and collection of farmyard manure. So when the dung falls, to put that dung together to make a manure out of it. All of these things in livestock are being done by women. True, sick animals are looked after by both men and women, but in general, livestock is something which is always looked after by the women. Okay. And other fields which are dealing with animal husbandry and are women dominated are poultry, fish grading and fish selling. And of late what we find is that usually the vegetable and fruit selling is also slowly being taken over by the women, because they are the ones who are there in the village, who are looking after these things. So they are the ones who go to the market and sell it also. Okay, so you have more of now the women vegetable vendors as far as the rural market is concerned. So there also the feminization is slowly happening. Okay, the next slide, please. Yeah, so I had given you the readings about this, that what are the issues which are faced by women farmers? Because unless you know the issues, how can you make policies out of them, right? So first and the most important issue is that hardly any woman of an agricultural household has the land in her name. The land is always in the name of the man. Always. So here I have written, and this is from the reliable sources, that only 6% of women farmers in India actually have land in their own name. Okay. And even these women who are owning land, even they do not control sale, purchase, and mortgage of land. So any decision regarding the land, even if the land is in your name, you are not allowed to take that decision. That decision is always taken by men. If your husband is not allowed, it will be taken by your in-laws. If your father-in-law is not around, by son, by your elder brother-in-law or younger brother-in-law, anybody but the woman. The control over land does not come with the ownership of land as far as women are concerned. Okay. But there is a very well-known economist called Beena Agarwal. And Beena Agarwal has her most important contribution to agriculture economics is that she was the first person who pointed out the relationship between land ownership and women, and that women are not owning this, and that this is not something which is a good thing to happen. Yeah. So Beena Agarwal has given this very interesting statistics, which I wanted you to understand so that you understand the importance of the land being in the name of the woman. She says that if the land is in your name, and if you take the total number of such women, only 7% of the women who have the land in their name faced physical violence. Only 7% of the ones who have the land in their name. The women who do not have the land in their name and who belong to the farmer household, almost half of them face physical violence. This is the difference. This is the difference when you transfer the land in the name of the women farmer. She gets that status. And with that status, she is not really subjected to much violence. And that is where the importance of owning land comes. Importance of loaning land, of course, comes in other things also, in the sense that if your husband passes away and you are not allowed to own land, and you have very small children, your land will be taken away by somebody who is, say, the uncle of the husband or the father of the husband or somebody, and you do not have the control over the farming of that land and get the food for yourself and your family. So it's very important for the women farmers to have the land in their names. Okay. So that was the economic reason. But as Bina Agarwal shows, there are some other effects also which are extremely important for the women's lives. Okay. Then the other thing, as I showed you, that women participate in almost 50% of the work of agriculture, and still less than 1% get the training for agriculture. Less than 1%. So basically, almost all women generally are not trained by any scientific advancement programs, government programs, or anything. They just do not get the access to it. What we are told is that it is because women are less literate than men. So out of sheer curiosity, I looked at the literacy rates of the women farmers. What I found was that the literacy rate was anywhere between 25 to 50% in different regions. The number of women receiving the training remains 1%. What literacy are we talking about? So, I mean, it's just an excuse that the women do not have literacy, and that is the reason why we don't train them. No, you don't train them because they are women. Because if you wanted to train them, you would have identified the women who are educated. How come the SHGs always find women who would write all the accounts and everything for them? How do they do that? Because they can identify the women who are educated. But here you are not willing to do so. And then you give that as an excuse, which is not very easily pardonable. Lack of mobility is another thing. They say that women do not come and participate in the programs where the program is held in, say, some district headquarters or something. Agreed. There is lack of mobility. Agreed that women with small children find it very difficult to travel. Agreed. But once again, as I said, it doesn't apply to everybody. Okay. And even if it applies to everybody, if you can go to farmers' organizations from village to village and teach them, to the farmers' groups, the techniques, why can't you go from village to village and teach the techniques to the village women farmers if they are not mobile? Yeah. So, as I said, there has to be some willingness to try to reach the women. And if you have the willingness, I'm sure you can reach them. Okay. Another major problem which women face, and this is something which you would find when you talk to any women farmers, that if the man has migrated somewhere, okay, say they are looking after some mining operations, or they are working in some urban areas and they are not at home, you need money for, say, buying the seeds, at times for buying the pesticides or something to look after the crop and something. Women do not have access to institutional credit, and that is because the land is not in their names. If you are not owning an asset, the banks without the collateral do not usually give credit. And that is the reason why very few women have access to institutional credit. So then you would tell me, कि हाँ तो ठीक है ना, but SHG तो है. SHGs are for small loans. That's why it is called microfinance. And agriculture cannot run just by microfinance. Agriculture needs more than that. Agriculture needs bank loans. For bank loans, you have to have the women owning some of the assets, and only then they would be able to access to the agricultural credit. So this is another very important gap in the policy. And I just have quoted Amartya Sen that you are talking about women's empowerment. He says that equality in access to information and capital are critical for women's empowerment. Now, I just showed you that they do not have access to information because they are not part of the government training program. They do not have access to capital because they are not allowed to take bank loans because they don't have any assets in their ownership. From where are we going to get women's empowerment? Okay, so yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so now just related with the uh, previous statistics of land ownership. Only 8% women said that they have control over agricultural income. So there is feminization of agriculture. They do most of the farming operations now on their own. But when the harvesting income comes, they are not allowed to decide what they will do with that income. That is once again the decision which is taken by the men of the family. So, with no voice in decision making and also lack of capital, for them it is difficult to invest in agriculture. This, according to me, is one of the reasons why the government training does not come to them. Because the government might be feeling that even if we teach them, they are not going to be able to invest. For that, we will have to talk to the men. So then, why don't we just talk to the men and forget about the women, right? Uh, Another very strange things. I don't even know. Maybe Professor Indira or Professor Vibhuti later can tell us about this, whether this happens in other nations or not. I know only about India because I have looked mainly at Indian agriculture. And this is true across India. That if it is the women farmers who are mainly farming the land and looking after the land, they will grow only food crops and they do not go crash crops because of the societal norms, because the women are not supposed to get into anything which, as I told you, is profitable, because that somehow hurts our conservative society. That how can women go into growing, the cash crops like, say, the cotton or groundnut or something like that. They should grow only, very small grains like, say, jawar, bajra or ragi or something, or at the most wheat and rice. At the most of the times they don't grow that also. So this is the thing, that women grow only food crops, not cash crops. And because of this, income that comes from agriculture from the lands which are farmed by the women is usually lesser. Once again, because of that, they get lesser importance in policy formation. It's a vicious circle, you see, that societal norms do not allow them to farm profitable crops. They do not have the money to invest in agriculture, and hence they are generally ignored by the policymakers, saying that they are insignificant lot and not very important. Yeah, in spite of feminization of agriculture. Uh, that once again, what we have found is that even in the food processing industries, women are generally in less profitable value chains. For the same reasons as about. So you will find that most of the NGOs that are uh, working with the women would make them do the papad, they would make them do achar and things like that. Nothing more than that. They would not make jams and juices and something which is going to be earning a lot of money. Nahi hota. ठीक है? So this is the dilemma which are faced by the women farmers. Now there are some rays of hope also. Yeah, next slide, please. Next slide, please. So what we find is that government might not come to the help of the women, but women come to the help of women. And that is what is very nice and interesting. So if you train one woman about some technique of agriculture, she would have no hesitation in going from house to house in her own village, telling her women friends or women colleagues that this is how you do this, and then it would work well. They would readily do it. They love to meet each other, they love to discuss things, they love to talk about how this can be successful, what has been her experience. Even when these women are taken to another village, they form that bond almost instantly, and they start telling each other that, oh yeah, but it happens like this in my village and all. So this is one wonderful thing, that your other trainers might not go, you train some of the women farmers, and then you can rely on them to train other farmers. That would actually work well. Okay. uh, Another thing which has been found, and I was informed about this by an NGO. I must confess that I wasn't very much privy to this particular information. That they said that what they used to do was, they used to make the husband and wife sit together, and after that, they would talk about all these issues, whether it is land ownership, whether it is what to grow, then even the access to credit, everything. And what they found was that because both of them are together, the men then are convinced that, yeah, the woman can do this, and these are the women who have already done this in other villages, so my woman also will be able to do it. And they have seen more success with this. So maybe, as the leaders in making the public policy and hopefully implementing it also, hopefully you would be able to use some of these techniques to make the things reach our women farmers. Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please. Some of the gender gaps. We talked, so some of them, that men own most of the assets, women don't. We have talked about it. For livestock, I told you, women look after the livestock almost in toto, but the livestock is always in the name of the men. And once again, the sale, purchase, or whatever of the livestock is not supposed to be decided by the woman. It is always decided by the man. The other major gap is that there is a big difference in the earnings of women workers versus men worker. It is 263 and 350, so almost 90 rupees are uh, almost 90 rupees are the difference between the wages of the man and the woman. Uh, then another thing is, uh, that I felt was actually something which is very nice, that the gender gap, when we talk about the gender gap, it closes between the man and woman when it comes to mobile phones. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable. But it is true that now the women also own mobile phones, and the gender gap decreased from 25 to 16%. So more and more women are getting access to mobile phones, which we can use to our advantage. Okay. And the other thing which also has happened, and this has happened because of maybe the Jandan Yojana, but more importantly, I think over the period of time, because of the efforts of all the women's organizations to open the bank accounts in the name of the woman, the gender gap in access to bank accounts has narrowed down from 9 to 6% point. So now you have most of the women having similar number of accounts as the men. So these are some of the things which we can use to our advantage when we work for the women farmers. Yeah, next please. Okay, so now what I'm going to tell you is that uh, you heard in one of the lectures before that the government, we are very good at planning, but we are not very good at implementing, and that lot of times whatever is planned is not implemented at the ground level. People who are able to do this really well at the ground level are some of the NGOs that we have, some of the very dedicated NGOs. So I'm just going to tell you the work of two NGOs to just demonstrate to you how the women workers have been either empowered or enriched by the efforts of these NGOs at the ground level. So first we will look at Kutch Mahila Vikas Sangathan. It is basically an advocacy organization, and what they have done is they have tried to create awareness and making land rights an inbuilt cultural practice. So they were telling me how they did it, and it is very nice. It seems that the first time, after they talked about the importance of the land rights for the women, uh, there was one lady called Fatima Bibi in Kutch, and Fatima Bibi, in the marriage of her daughter, she had two children, one son and one daughter. So, in the marriage of her daughter, Fatima Bibi gave 50% of the land rights to the daughter as the marriage gift. Now, that is something which kind of created lots of ripples, and many people were asking what is being done. But suddenly, the status of the daughter in the in law's family increased like anything. And that was noticed by lots of women. So, this is one thing which the KMVS says that they are very proud of, because it immediately created ripples. Okay. And now what they are saying is that there is now far more awareness about the equal shares of daughters in the wealth of the parents. So that is something which they have been able to achieve with these kind of things. I mean, after Fatima Baby, as I said, there were a lot of people who started considering this while distributing their wealth. Another thing which they did was they worked with the government. When the government was once upon a time, it was called Indira Awas Yojana. Now it is called Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So under the government Awas Yojanas, they insisted that the names of both the husband and wife should be written. And now it is becoming quite a widespread practice where whenever the government builds the houses, it gives it in the names of both the man and woman. So there is a correction happening. And this thing that I told you before, that there is no asset in the name of the woman, some people have started giving land rights, some people have started giving the share in the wealth, and now the houses which are built by the government has the name of the woman also as the joint owner of that house. So these are some very positive development which have happened because of the efforts at the ground level. In addition to that, they told me that they have seed banks for improved seeds, and that is because it is usually the work of the woman to identify the seeds from the harvested crop for the next crop. So, to give them better seeds, they had made seed banks so that from the village, the women would know that these are the improved seeds. They would make a seed bank. Some women will come and borrow those improved seeds, make a crop, and from that crop, they would give back the seeds which were there. So the improved seeds started circulating more. And now they are saying that they have circulated it to lots of women. So now there is not that much of prevalence of seed banks, but they said that they use them a lot. Milk cooperatives, we found, is often, and this is what Amul also says, often more successful if it is the women's cooperative. Because men's cooperative has been kind of falling apart lots of times because of the quarrels. They were saying that maybe the women have more ability to work together and tolerate each other's opinions. And that's the reason why milk cooperatives also was something which KMVS also encouraged, and they were saying that they are still, even today, running quite successfully. Kutch is the region which is an arid region in Gujarat. So there is very little rain. So there are times when almost every third to fourth year there is a drought. So fodder bank is something which they also established, which comes into picture more when there is a drought. So it's not something which is always there, but they have established fodder banks also. So these are the kind of things that KMVS has done. Okay, next slide, please. Then the other examples of successful solutions on ground, I have taken one more organization called Utthan. Utthan is an NGO in Ahmedabad, and they have actually worked directly with women farmers only, not with men farmers, only with women farmers. They have worked with them, and they have actually achieved organic farming and what I would say, better soil, better health for everybody through organic farming and through holistic approach towards sustainable agriculture. So how have they done it? So what they do is, as I told you before, women talk to women easily. So they have trained some Krishi Sakhis. So some women who are educated, who are also experienced in agriculture, they have selected them and they have trained them. Each village has at the most two Krishi Sakhis. And these Krishi Sakhis go to all the women farmers of that village and they teach them the good agricultural technologies. And they were telling me that when it started with just 2 to 4 families. And now in every village, there are at least 150 to 200 families who are actually practicing organic farming and this holistic sustainable agriculture approach, all through the Krishi Sakhis and through women farmers. The other thing which they do is they have an office in the collectorate of, I think, about 2 to 3 districts where their paralegal workers sit. And they, whenever whoever comes, they teach them about the land rights. And through that, they have now been able to get a lot of land in the name of the women also. So now both the husband and wife have become joint owners. So that's something which they have also done by keeping paralegal workers in the collector's office. Yeah, next slide, please. So these are the things when they say holistic sustainable agriculture, these are the kind of practices that they advocate. What I found out while talking to the villagers who have adopted these practices, villagers were telling us that we have not been able to follow each and every one of these practice, but we practice enough to be able to called organic farmers because we have stopped using chemicals and we use most of these practices. One thing which they also told me was that organic farming, when they transfer from chemical farming to organic, for 1 or 2 years their crops did decline. But after that, they are telling me that the productivity has remained the same and their soil has improved, their expenditure has declined. So, in general, they are saying that this entire approach of sustainable agriculture is something which is very beneficial to them and which ensures good health for both the women farmers and their children, which they are very much worried about. Yeah, next slide, please. So now, as the people who have been very proactive in empowering women farmers and uh, encouraging them to take up some activities which are related but which might not be the actual farming activities, which have been actually successful operations for you to take note of, so that if tomorrow you were to be asked which are the kind of things we should be teaching to the women farmers, some of the examples that you can give are these. And then from this, of course, I'm sure 100 other options will come. So the first one is beekeeping, which I have seen the women starting from Himalayas to Maharashtra, lot of and even the forests in Karnataka, lot of women are growing this. Value addition to tomatoes, especially making purees and ketchup. Then fruit preservation techniques. Lot of women are into, uh, in fact, less than vermicompost because they do make vermicompost. But what has started selling a lot, especially in Gujarat, are what is this something called Jivamrut. So Jivamrut is a liquid organic fertilizer that the women make at home, and it is, I am told, almost 5 times more effective than the normal farmyard manure. So they not only make it and apply it on their fields, they have started selling it. And it seems that the demand is not just in rural areas. All these people who are urban customers who have their balconies filled with the gardens, they also have started demanding this Jivamrut. So this Jivamrut is something which also has become very important for not just sustainable agriculture, but as an income generation activity for the women farmers. Dairy management, as I told you, milk cooperatives and all. Mushroom cultivation has grown quite a lot as far as Madhya Pradesh and places like that are concerned. And once again, it has been very profitable for the women who are doing it. Production of biofertilizer includes Jivamrut, but there are other biofertilizers also. In fact, there are some biopesticides also that some of these women make, which is like neem pesticide or chili pesticide or things like that. They are not yet, I haven't seen them selling it much, but at least I know that they are into the production of it and they are giving the technology to each other. I mean, in this true cooperative way that I'm not here to just earn money from you. You are also a farmer, I am also a farmer, so here is the technique, here is the thing, take this neem, spread it on your plant, see if it works. If it works, then I'll teach you how to do it. That entire attitude, all of these things are something which are working very well for the women farmers. So yeah, next slide and I'm done. Yeah, so that's all that I wanted to say, and thank you. And now I would open the floor for questions and answers, please.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful session, and your comprehensive analysis of women in agriculture has provided us with valuable perspectives on the challenges and opportunities in the sector, and
Yes.
emphasizing the need for policies and initiatives that promote gender inclusive growth and sustainable livelihoods. I would now like to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel ji to share her reflections of the session. Over to you,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Professor Alka Parikh, you made a very, very important presentation. And I think for the first time, we have had such a comprehensive view on women in farm sector, because most of the participants, as well as the resource persons, their priorities have been urban India. So this
Yes.
is a very important concern that you have raised. And as you said, that whatever is happening in India in terms of gender stereotypes, women not being allowed to get skill upgradation, or women not having ownership. I think these are the issues we are facing universally, because land rights has now emerged as a global issue in all the post-colonial economies of Latin America, Africa, and Asia, and especially because the land has become a prized possession in the neoliberal 21st century world capitalism. So that is also one of the reasons. And because women are asserting for their land rights, lot of murders of women are also happening, because earlier the witch killing was not a universalized phenomena, but now 14 states have reported killing of women as witches. And when you further probe, it
Yeah.
is the issue is about either land or house or inheritance. No, so that is one reality. In Philippines, we have seen a very strong organization called Gabriela, which has taken up farm sector, women's farm sectors, this thing. In fact, Gabriela played, first of all, a very important role in fighting against sex tourism and the American Army base, which was completely brutalizing Filipino women. So it all started with that, and the beauty pageant Elia Sancho started. And then they went into that why women were selling off their children as babies, no, because of the poverty and hunger. And that's how they started focusing on the livelihood resources and the subsistence farming, and empowered these women. While in Africa also, we have seen that women are in subsistence sector, and we are also, men are in commercial. So whether it's a cultivation of strawberry or cherry or coffee or cocoa for the global market, no, especially Nestle, Cadbury's, and the soft drink industries of the West, like agro business, they have also like roped in men workers in the African countries. So that is a major struggle. And we know that Wangari Maathai, how she fought against commercial agriculture. And she also said that hunger in Africa is not caused by African people. It is caused by the faulty economic policies by the leaders in collusion with the world capitalism. And that's why she started a green belt movement. She was imprisoned in the 80s, but it was the women's movement which fought for her release. She also got Nobel Peace Prize, and she made her green belt movement, which was started in Kenya, and many of us have even visited her farms and all. she expanded it to all 56 African countries and made farmers take a pledge that under no circumstances you would compromise your food security and food sovereignty to commercial crop. No? And same thing we find even in India, the widows of the farmers who have committed suicide, their organization Makam, Mahila Kisan Adhikar Manch, which is now an informal alliance of 120 individuals and organizations spread across 18 states of India. They also are giving the new lease of life to the women in the farm sector and fighting for their rights, working with the for the implementation of government scheme, and also raising the larger issues related to macroeconomic. Thank you. It was a really very inspiring and very hope-generating lecture that you have given, because you ended also with so many successful examples. Even I felt nostalgic because I visited KMBS thrice on behalf of Tata Trust, no, after the earthquake in Kutch, which the rehabilitation work which Tata Trust had done in collaboration with KMBS. So they have taken me to all their fields in Abdasa and Bhuj and the coastal region, Fisher Falls.
Yeah.
Very important.
Thanks a lot for providing the information about the international lens of women in agriculture. That was very informative. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
We now invite questions from the audience. Kindly use the raise hand feature, type your queries in the Q&A box to participate in the discussion. Yes, Akansha ji, please go ahead.
Question is, good evening, ma'am. My question is, with all this new changes happening in the agrarian economy, where women are taking a kind of leadership role, it must be very new for men there. So, like when you see, ma'am, can you throw some light on what is the reaction of the men there, and how are they dealing? Are they supportive of the new changes, or it's a more of a reactionary approach that they have? What is?
Okay, Akanksha, the first thing is that they are not emerging as leaders yet. So what is happening is that it is still the men who control everything. So there is no question of they reacting. It is like they're telling the women that you do this when I'm out. And then I will come back and decide what is to be done with it. That is the atmosphere which is prevailing right now. So they are giving the work to the women, but they are not giving the authority to the women to decide anything. So that is still being decided by men only. So there is no question of they reacting to this new reality, because for them the new reality is only that I will be looking after earning money from the urban areas, when she is watering the plants is what some of the men actually told me, कि वो तो सिर्फ पानी पिलाती है और फिर मैं आके ट्रैक्टर चलाता हूँ, हार्वेस्टिंग करनी है तो मैं ही वापस आ जाता हूँ, and things like that, you know, that attitude has not yet changed.
Ma'am, then how can we bring about a major change without the support of them? Because we need them to make this happen. Without their support, we cannot.
We cannot.
How are we going to take them on board?
Yes.
I think that is most important as of now in all sectors. I
I
feel
feel
how to make them on board in this.
Yes, that's why I remember I showed you in that slide that the strategy which has worked when I was talking about the positive, hopeful rays of the rays of hope. So in that I had said that when the woman and I mean when the wife and husband are made to sit together, the change starts coming in slowly, you know, because they also realize that here is the person, she's working, she knows what she's talking about, and these people who have come to teach us something are giving equal importance to her, so her status rises in his eyes. So I mean, you know, Akanksha, social changes don't happen overnight. you have to keep working towards it, which is what all of these people are doing. So they are bringing it about, and I'm so glad that you said this, that how do we bring them on board. So you didn't say how do we throw them out. We are not talking about breaking the families, not at all. We want the women to be given their fair part. That's all that we are asking for. And that's why, yes, take them on board by making both of them sit together and understand their roles and give equal importance to both of them. That's what we want. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for
Yeah.
your valuable insight.
Yes, Sabira ji, you can go next.
Thank you, ma'am. I think it was some of the things that you spoke, were very enlightening and very new for me. What I realized today is,
Where can I see your face first?
oh, I cannot on my video.
Oh, you can't switch on your video.
Yeah, I
Well,
just
we are
have an
missing out
audio
on that. Then.
option.
We are missing out. Anyway, yeah, go on.
Okay, sorry. Uh,
Yeah.
So basically, now what I was going to say is, what I realized today is it's more of an education related issue with the farmers who are men. It's not trying to allow women to, get the benefit or participating as much as they are not even aware of. That awareness is not there. And when you said that, get both of them on the, on the table and speak to them equally, which will solve the problem. It was very enlightening for me. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thanks. And Samira, just one more thing though. Um, Awareness on part of husbands, yes. But awareness on part of government is something for which we might have to actually fight for, because
Mm.
that is something which, as I showed, is not happening. I mean, they know that feminization of agriculture has happened. It's a well known fact, and yet they are not getting trained so much. So that is something which needs to come, which needs to be insisted upon, you know. So ek taraf you are working with the samaj, you are working with the society, but on the other hand you are working with the government also, and maybe the paths are going to be slightly different.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Purvi ji, you can go next with the question.
Good evening, ma'am. It was really enlightening to, know so many facts about farmers, women farmers. And do we have a term for farmers who are women, or do we call them farmers only? It's a
So
gender neutral.
it's a gender neutral thing. It's a
Right.
gender neutral thing. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, I think you have reflected on this, but I still want your opinion on it. How effective do you think the current policies and programs that exist in Constitution, how effective they are, and what are the gaps? Because you have done such elaborate research on this, do you think there are any particular, because we have already talked, you have already talked about how there are so many ways in which we are lagging behind, even with the present policies that have already been framed in the constitution. But do you think there are certain policies that can also help? There are some gaps that can be filled in certain ways. So just want to know your opinion on it. Thank you.
See, I mean, I unfortunately, from the top of my head, I can't remember the names of the policies, but yes, we have done those analysis, and what we have found is that, Urvi, that there are now the government policies which talk about there should be the participation of women in the training programs and this and that. So there are intentions, but it has not yet translated into actions on ground. So at least somewhere the intentions are showing now. Yes, I agree, but we need to do much more than that, much more. So that's where we are lacking even now. So the ground situation remains the same in spite of the policies now changing a little bit. दिखावे के लिए है या सचमुच है, I don't know, but I mean it is there now. So it is like what one of your former speakers talked about, that women's present representation or leadership. So Lot of times the women are just, their names are put in by their husbands, saying that my wife will be there, where everything is done by the husband. The woman has absolutely no voice, naam ke vaste chalta hai. So this is what I mean, even by the agricultural policies and women, कि अभी तक जो भी हुआ है नाम के वास्ते. Well, it has not really made any difference on the ground yet, except for certain things like, as I told you, this beekeeping, mushroom cultivation. These are actually done by the government and successfully done. Yes, I must say that has definitely happened. Definitely.
Thank you so
What
much. Ma'am, this also, reminds me that I had been teaching my students contemporary India women in empowerment. And one of the most important topics in this subject is on women in workforce in India. And I feel like we have reflected on so many aspects of women in different professions and not farming. So your lecture was really enlightening, and I'm going to make sure that students learn about these facts. And I also learn more about this. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in our syllabus we need to have this thing.
Yeah.
It should not be India versus Bharat, no? Because generally, even when you sit in the board of studies, they would want you to focus on intellectual property and
Yes.
international relation, international
Right.
economic,
Right.
international trade.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
said, though, keep agriculture optional, and some
Yeah.
of them would say that it is boring, we don't want it. So that also we have seen in board of studies and academic council. So I think it's very important that we make conscious effort, no, to include it in the syllabus so the children are oriented. And along with that, project work also, taking them to the, like in my school, it was compulsory to take, we were taken to model farm, we were taken to nearby rural areas, or in the name of Bunyadi Talim. So I think that those practices will have to be revived. And national education policy also talks about it. Anubhav Shikshan, experiential knowledge.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for adding to this.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, Urvi, what do you do professionally?
Ma'am, I am an assistant professor in School of Languages and Culture. So I basically teach literature and cultural studies. So part of that is also like we do have gender studies in our department too. So yes, ma'am.
So you are in Hyderabad.
No, ma'am, I'm in Chandigarh.
It's a there also there school of languages.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Urvi, just one more thing that I wanted to add, since you talked about language and culture, that there are certain professions which are called occupations, and there are certain professions which are called livelihood. And the reason why a profession is called livelihood is because it almost defines the whole way of life. Agriculture is one of them. So, it is cultural also. When you say that a particular household is an agricultural household, the lot of cultural traditions goes with that, because it's all the same. The occupation and the custom and the entire way of living is the same. So that's why it is called livelihood. It is not just called an occupation. So maybe that's one of the things that you can also concentrate on when you talk about cultural studies. You have to talk about the livelihoods, because that defines the way of life for people.
That's a very interesting perspective, ma'am. I'll definitely incorporate that too.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, Surbhi, you can go next with the question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. It was a very enlightening lecture. You in the lecture said that almost similar women farmers have smartphones access, or the digital divide is almost bridged among male farmers and women farmers. So, can you tell me how they are actually leveraging those technologies to maybe enhance financial inclusion, or there are certain schemes that help them, whether it is Jan Dhan or Fasal Bima? Are they actually leveraging those technologies for empowerment? Is my question.
I'm so glad you asked this question, Surbiji. I'm so glad. I have been trying to find the answer for this myself, because, frankly speaking, I'm not convinced that they have been able to leverage it much. Because what happens is that, if you remember, this is during the COVID time, that lot of the tea plantation workers were given their money through the this thing, bank transfer.
Right.
Okay. They did not know how to use either the mobile or the ATM machines.
Yeah.
So they had to always rely on their children. So if you have a mobile phone and the only thing that you can do is watch Garba on it, as our people in the, I mean, the women in Gujarat do. So that is something which is not going to be able to leverage their position. I don't think we have reached that stage yet. So, I mean, they are not yet using it to leverage their positions, is what I feel is the case. But I must confess also that this is a hypothesis which I can't say I have yet proved with my own study data.
Because my exposure is only to the collective. When I go to the budget to the Sarpanch or Pradhan, who are very proactive, or in the SHG, or in the women's cooperatives and trade unions and Kisan Sabhas. So they are unionized, and many of them are educated also. So they are able to leverage. So wherever they are united, even one person is can manage technology, the whole organization survives. Because that is very important. Out
Yeah.
of 20 women in the SHG, one person also can handle that
Exactly.
SHG will flourish. No, it's very
Exactly, because women always help women. But when you are individual farmer, to be able to leverage that has not been that easy for them, you know.
I think Professor Indira can also tell us, because you had a Samakhya experience, which was so powerful in the rural Karnataka, no? Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just joined, and thank you. Where it is coming.
Yeah.
I think there is some,
You're right.
That there.
No, your experiences of women in farm sector. Dr.
Yeah,
Alka's, yeah,
agriculture.
that's what they are asking. How women are leveraging technology. Yeah.
Yeah. See, actually, I have not directly done any work in this particular area. So what I hear is now precision farming people are talking about. So where, the message is going either from men to women. So people are using, especially in Karnataka, you find in some pockets, women are actively engaged, and especially when it comes to what is called horticulture crops, vegetables, when they are growing vegetables. So there actually there are more than those who are growing subsistence crops, and those who are involved in this kind of crops. So there it is actually catching up, and they are talking to each other and getting to know what price it is going on, and where they are selling. To some extent, it is catching up in the case of this one commercial crops rather than in the case of subsistence crops, especially paddy and such kind of. There, still it is a lot of exploitation is there in such crops. Yeah.
But even sericulture is so, I visited so many districts in Karnataka where women are into, it is
more women
supplementary income.
Yeah, women are engaged in that cocoon rearing. So there also the information passes through when they form into groups, and among those groups, that's what, where there is a commercial interest is there, such crops. So they are interested, and people are using cell phones, to get the information about, and some kiosks, for example, in coffee, there is ITC interventions are there. So where, women farmers, so that's a high level, high value crop, coffee. So where most of the farmers are highly educated and they have access to this information. So, I mean, it different layers, subsistence, those who are in the subsistence farming, still there is very less penetration. Whereas in the case of those who are commercial farming, and also those are what is called horticulture crops and vegetables, especially the peripheral semi-urban areas of Bangalore. There is a lot of horticulture crops grown, and women are involved in that. But when it comes to actually marketing and decision, they will only collect the information. Oh, what price is going on and such kind of information, they give the inputs. But still, again, decision making is by men. Where to sell and take it.
Ma'am, can I add something?
Yeah.
There is a project called DISTO project, which is the digital skills to tangible outcomes. It is run by London School of Economics into 28 different countries. They are also planning for inclusion of India, which actually talks about how not just digital access converts directly into tangible outcomes. For us, for urban women, even purchasing, online banking is very easy and part of the tangible outcomes. But even uploading a photo on maybe a Fasal Bima app would be a big task for women in rural areas. So it actually talks about how like different access and different skills would lead to tangible outcomes, and until you have trained those people in those things, it is very difficult. Not access does not like basically translate into digital
Exactly.
empowerment.
Yes,
Exactly.
that is
Exactly. Very true.
that is
Very
true.
true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First step is at least getting to know, getting access, and second step is getting to know how to use it for their own. Yes, yeah.
Are there any another question from the participants?
Even sharing, because all of you are in the profession doing different. Yeah. Even sharing is important. And I think the even focus on rural urban linkage and what we can be. There is give and take between the rural and urban workers.
Okay. It looks like there is nothing.
Okay. Yeah.
Ma'am, I just had a simple question like what kind of metrics can use to measure progress towards gender equity in this sector?
Metrics.
What kind of metrics can we use to measure gender equity in this sector? That
Yes, ma'am.
metrics will have to have lots of aspects,
Metrics.
lots of columns. It can't
Mhm.
be just a single thing. So it will have to be a very complex thing, because as I told you, we are talking about land rights, we are talking about access to credit, we are talking about the access to information, access to training programs, so a lot of access to markets. So lot of things we are talking about. So when you're talking about that matrix, you will have to have a lot of variables in it.
Forward and backward linkages also, whatever they
Yeah,
are.
forward and backward linkages also. So you will have to have lots of things in that.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
So I see there are no more additions or questions.
Yes.
So
So
we will end the discussion here. And ma'am,
right.
we truly appreciate your thoughtful and detailed responses to every question, and your insights have been invaluable. And we look forward to welcoming you again at IMPRI's future programs. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you, everybody. Well, it was very nice talking to all of you, and you all participated very heartily, which was wonderful. Wonderful experience. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Professor Alka, I could not attend earlier, but I will watch the recorded, and
Watch the video.
Yes.
I will.
Yes, ma'am. And if there are things that you have to tell us more, then please you can also add it as comments so that we all can learn from you
No,
also.
I'll be happy to listen to you. I'll just watch the more video. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you
Recording.
so
Thank
much.
you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye,
Thank
everybody.
you, ultimate. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Moving on to the next segment of today's program. Our next session is an interaction session between fellows and the experts. Fellows are encouraged to engage with the experts, share their insights, and seek guidance on their areas of interest. Would somebody like to go first?
Nobody is talking. Individually, actually, I was in touch with some of the students. Like
Same here.
morning also, Arnima, I just was interacting with her. She joined a bit late, and but I think now she got inputs, and she said that by Wednesday she'll get back to me with whatever I asked her to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I have also seen so many abstracts and also responded individually to my email. And some of you have also started doing your review of literature, and some have also been working on questionnaire. So
Yeah.
any other progress or any support that you require, you can share, or even share your findings from the field or whatever literature you have, or gap analysis that you share. Just check. Okay. Let's see. How effective are the current policies that we do?
Good evening. So,
Yes,
this is something, ma'am, that I wanted to ask. So, I was looking at, female politicians and in India and how they have been projected in mass media. And because it's a completely qualitative study, but I am using the framework of reception theory, looking at how the language has been mediated to represent most of these female politicians in headlines. So I'm particularly interested in newspapers, magazines. But I've also, both of you, in fact, Professor Vibhuti Patel and Professor Indira, if you could recommend any particular theorists, uh, feminist theorists, or any theoretical framework really that I
Bordu?
also incorporate. Yes, ma'am.
Have you read Bordu?
Bodo, I have, ma'am, but with specific theory, do you think?
Especially it's identity and construction of
Okay,
identity.
okay, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. Okay, yes, ma'am. Is there anybody else? I mean, in terms of
I think Nancy Fraser also. No?
Nancy Fraser.
Nancy
Okay,
Fraser also. Yes.
okay, okay, ma'am. I'll read more elaborately.
In the Indian context, you can read
Of
Shilpa Phadke. For Indian context, you can read Shilpa Phadke, Lakshmi Lingam. They are the media studies of Shilpa Phadke has authored 2 books. Yeah. She's from the School of Media Studies. Yes.
okay. Which
and
was
Anjali Montero. Anjali Montero, Professor Shilpa Phadke.
Yes, ma'am.
Professor Anjali Montero and Professor Lakshmi Lingam.
Thank you, ma'am. I was actually trying to look at feminist theorists in India, but I wasn't able to find, which specific. I could find Anu Menon, but I was still looking for more. So thank you. I'll read.
Vishakha Datta. Vishakha Datta.
Okay.
Point of view.
Okay.
They have done a lot of this thing, feminist analysis of the media, both electronic and audiovisual media.
Okay.
Point of view is the name of NGO.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Have you read Nivedita Menon?
Yes, ma'am.
Thinking like feminist. Yeah,
Seeing like a feminist. Yes, ma'am.
think like that.
Are there any other queries from the fellows? Since there are no queries, should we move to the closing remarks, ma'am?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
And hope your work is progressing well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, Akansha, you can go ahead and then I'll take over after you. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on mute, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, I've yet not been able to submit even my proposal because I've also talked with the team. I'm simultaneously going with my college application. So, ma'am, I will be a bit delayed. My question I have regarding an essay that I'm writing. So, can I ask that?
Yeah.
So, ma'am, I want to research on how caste affects gender violence, sexual gender violence, and in that I want to explore 2 areas. One is community policing, and second is emotional empowerment. So that these 2 things I want to mention in the essay, because the essay is about one social area that you feel you have experienced in your life, and how you're going to work on that. So I want to move ahead with research in this area, ma'am. I want to my career trajectory, how I want to go is how you have pursued it, like academia and then move into activism. So, ma'am, I will be writing about these two aspects. Like, what do you say? Like, what
Will
else?
it have a focus? Huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Will it have a focus on policy, legislation? Are you going to focus it? Because that will come under the purview of anthology here. So that is there. Gender-based violence, only gender-based violence is not good, but are you linking it up with the legislations and policies?
Yes,
That
ma'am.
will be
Women policies. I will be pursuing women policy specialization in
yeah,
a
and also Anti-Atrocity Act, because if it is gender-based violence, it would also take into consideration Anti-Atrocity Act. The qualitative work, participatory action work, which is done by Shilpa Parikh in her PhD thesis. You can read the thesis on Show the Ganga. It's a PhD a platform. You can read the thesis, where she is theoretically also very rigorous, and she has done qualitative study of wherever women had faced violence, and also use the law and media. So she had Anti-Atrocity Act. So she followed up with all those cases of gender-based violence in Maharashtra, and she did it's a quite interesting work, because the first chapter is on the theoretical framework, and after that she has focused on the actual research in the state.
Ma'am, one more thing, like for my CV, so I have focused mostly on organizations, voluntary work and internship work with organizations which are in women field, and I've not chosen deliberately organizations which are globally present. Will that work in my advantage? Because I want to focus on organizations, work with organizations which are doing work at pan-India level instead of global level.
Yeah, both myself and Professor Indira, all our life, we have worked only locally and nationally. By choice we have worked because and we feel life is quite worthy and purposeful.
Ma'am, one more thing, like, so your career trajectory, you entered into academia and then you went into activism. Ma'am,
Mine was a activism. I have been in academia only for 15 years of my life.
Okay, ma'am, you started with activism, okay.
Activism at the age of 15, I was in school. First in social movement, and by 1980, I was in the women's movement.
I was never into activism. No, never. I was into activism. I was only supporting women's groups, but not like Vibhuti. Yeah, I have not done that much of. Yeah.
I was a full-time activist first, and to support myself, I used to do freelance research and television comparing, radio program, and journalism. And full-time activism, full-time academic work, I did for 5 years from 88 to 92. Then I went to London School of Economics for postdoctoral work. Then I had another 10-year gap where I was just building our NGOs and all, and bounced back in 2004. So after that, I worked for 13 years in academia.
So you have the rich experience of
both activism
ground. It reflects on what you speak a lot. It reflects, yes, very much.
Yes,
So, ma'am, in my essay, there's one more woman who is Bell Hooks. Her name is Bell Hooks, who took a similar journey. So I also wanted to ask you, like, I will be mentioning your name and Bell Hooks as the inspiration
Bell Hooks was our contemporary. When we were in the New Left in India, she was there in England. So
So this is what I've been mentioning. Ma'am, so I also want to ask from your experience, both of your experience, am I going right? So my so it took me nearly 10 years. I explored some 10 fields, and then finally I found that this is my life purpose. And with that perspective, I'm moving. So what I want to do is that make Columbia the epicenter of my work, and and then from there pursue PhD after MSW, and then go for PhD, then enter academia, and then go for research. Where I will be want to research extensively on how caste affects sexual violence, and then the various perspectives related to that.
Yeah,
Ma'am, so
that's it.
Yeah.
am I
See,
going?
yeah, the geopolitical situation, global situation is very different from when we began 50 years back, no? So, but I think your choices are important because you have had such a rich experience, varied experience, and you have come to this thing. Now focus and start working. That's, yeah, it is an important decision.
There is nothing like right or wrong because it is what your gut feeling and where your heart is, where you want to contribute. So that guides you. That guides you. And of course, the experiences
Yeah.
that you also have before getting into academics. And that will certainly help you in your academics. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I've connected with a professor at Columbia who is also an Indian, and she
Yeah.
is the dean there.
Yeah.
I talked about my whole journey, and she said, "Ki I think you should go ahead with that." Ma'am, what is it that you would suggest me right now to do? Any suggestions that I should do
I
right
think
now?
first of all, you start knowing about existing body of knowledge on caste atrocities and how caste, class, and gender. Some of the works by Sharmila Reke or Cynthia Stephen, the people who have done a lot of work from the Indian context, no, and they have also, some of them call themselves feminists, some of them call themselves womanists. But I think it's very important to acclimatize yourself with the issue of this thing. Even the NRIs who have written about the caste discrimination in USA. Such a big thick report has come out by the non-resident Indians that caste prevails even in USA, and they have also so many actions have been taken against Google, that how even the technology giants are discriminating people and layering people. The same layered hierarchy you see even in the Fortune 500 companies. So all those writings, I think you can read. A lot of work has happened in last 20 years. No? So please acclimatize yourself with the existing body of work. Even just go on the portal of Shodh Ganga and see the studies which are
Yes,
available.
I also
Shodh Ganga.
evaluated some theses. I don't remember the titles, but there are some theses. Yeah.
Yeah.
If there, yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, Priyanka ji. Yeah, Priyanka.
No, I just wanted to go over the upcoming deadlines as we are approaching the end of the program also. But if Akansha ji has something more to discuss, she's welcome to.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask, like there are two opposite streams of feminism. One is like a very extremist approach where we say that we don't want men, we are ahead of men and things like that. And then there's another one which is a more liberal perspective, and that is how the concept of feminism also started, where we were just asking for equal rights and equal value and dignity. So what holds in present scenario, which is more relevant, if I can ask you?
I think we don't want man was never a stand taken by feminists. So, and even the history of last 200 years, perspectives may be different in terms of strategy and tactics, but always like it was a way of thinking, the way Alka ji put it, or all the lectures throughout, not a single resource person has talked about we don't want man. So I think it's a misrepresentation, and the media has created that impression to vilify feminism because, but that's not true. You
That
go
is
through
how
the
we have got
writings.
gender and development concept now.
Yeah.
Why we got this women and development and women in development? We got gender and development concept is basically to address both Men and women.
And also not only both, beyond gender, men, women, and gender
Women,
minorities.
yeah,
All
men,
are, it's
not only
all,
just people alone, yes.
all inclusive.
Inclusive, to make it inclusive, yes.
Yeah, make it inclusive.
And
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Akansha ji. Since we are approaching towards the last leg of our program, we will all now be meeting, I think, on the 2nd of March. After that, we have another couple of sessions on the 8th of March, which will be the Women's Day. And then we have the last culminating sessions on March 9th. This is this is sort of the time series for the lecture portion of the program. And after that, we have the research essay submission and the expert review and final submission and publication part of it, which will then continue continue throughout the March and will go, I think, till the first or second week of April. So that is sort of another additional month. But before that, we have these 3 days with us, March 2, March 8, and March 9. March 2 and 9 are the 2 days that we have kept for the presentation by the fellows. These presentations are supposed to be very brief, just 3-minute, 4-minute presentations, not more than that. It's sort of like an update on where you are currently standing. Since you're discussing with both the chairs and you have made some progress in your project, it will be nice to see where you're standing via presentation. You can choose any medium. It could be audio medium, it could be video medium. You can do some poetry or anything that suits you better. Any form of expression is more than welcome. Apart from that,
on March 2nd, do we
yes,
have
ma'am.
2 presentations?
Yes,
On
ma'am.
March
March
2nd,
2nd.
one
Yes, ma'am.
Professor Indira Ramarao, Gender
And
Parity, Politics
Purnima
and
ma'am,
Governance. Acha,
Purnima ma'am. Yes, Purnima ma'am was not available on the slotted date, so she
So Dr.
asked for
Purnima
a...
Chauhan.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so she will, hers will be, generally she exceeds time limit. So how are we going to have fellows creative presentation?
Ma'am, we will this time I think we will request her to sort of constrain it a little bit, because we do have a cohort which is more than 40 fellows in this cohort. We
That's
wouldn't
why.
be able to do it all on the last day itself as well. And another option that we have is that March 8th also we'll be having 2 sessions. If the time will allow and if some of the fellows are ready, we'll take a few presentations. Maybe
Ma-
some 5, 6 presentations can be done. Yes, ma'am.
I don't think March 8 is realistic, because Anuja Gulati,
Yes, ma'am.
she's
Yes.
speaking on strategies for transformative change for gender equality. She's making it very, very, she has put in her heart and soul. We won't be able to curb her. We have already given her 4 to 5 as
Yes,
a
ma'am.
time.
Yes.
And Amarjit Kaur is a political leader, and which is a leader of NFIW. So we have already told her that she's to speak from 3 to 4. So at least we can't eat up their time. After that, only we'll be able to take the presentation.
Ma'am, another option is that like with everybody's consent, we can go for an extra session just for the presentations if it is required. We do have the last day, March 9th, in which we have one session by Lakshmi ji, Professor Lakshmi Lingam, and then we
That
have
is
the
a valedictory address.
valedictory address, and then we have the entire session for presentations and the formal closing remarks by both the chairs. That is one day when we have a nice big slot. Other than that, if required, then with everybody's consent, on whatever date it suits everybody, we'll probably go for another presentation session.
But you'll have to tell us in advance, because
Yes, ma'am.
March is a
Yes.
very, very busy month for all of us. There is a great demand, and I have avoided in-person
Yes, ma'am.
addresses and
Yes.
all. But I think we'll have to work. So if we come to the common agreement for date and time slot, that would be practical, and we'll be able to take the presentations.
Yes, ma'am,
Because
definitely. And in lieu
programs,
of
which will be
these
too crowded.
presentations only, I would like to uh, request the fellows to submit an article 800 to 1000 words or lesser will also work, sort of like a blog article, because you are at at whatever place within your research, respective researches, you are at some point, and I think you can give a written submission of that. It will help you create a presentation as well. So that will not be a burden if you submit it. We'll provide you with the deadlines, probably will be since before March 2nd. So it's 23rd today. February 28th is what everybody can expect. A short article, 800 to 1000 words. It can be lesser also if you want to go to 700 to 900 limit. That will also work. Not an issue. Whatever you are working on your respective research topics that you have been discussing, you have definitely conducted some sort of literature review. So you can come up with an article on that. It will be like a nice update on your respective projects as well. That will help you come up. That will help you come up with the presentation also. And the presentation, if you are giving in the PPT mode, there's no need for more than 3 to 5 slides. So really
Yeah.
very quick, very brief slides. Just
Achha,
the
so
yes, ma'am.
we are not aiming at anthology, no, of chapters, with chapters and all
No, no,
that.
ma'am, we are. These articles were asking so that they can, the work will continue on these ones, and it will be converted into the book chapter. We have the March after March 9th, we have the deadlines for the draft submission of the research essays on March 16th. So by March 16th, we are expecting a research essay draft submission from the fellows, and March 30th is when we'll be responding to them after it has been reviewed and um more suggestions and comments have been made. And then April 6th is when we are asking them to resubmit us after making all the suggestions. We will be providing all of this in the on the WhatsApp group and on the email as well, all the details regarding these deadlines and all. And we will also share these with both the chairs respectively as well, so that it is clear for everybody. Right now, we're only requesting that you please submit a shorter. It's like earlier you submitted the chairs a short abstract that ranged from 250 to 350 words. So that gave the chairs an idea on what you are working on. Now it has been some time that you have been working on your respective research ideas with the chairs, and a little output can be produced. So one blog article about 800 words is sufficient. And
So I think,
one, yes,
What is
ma'am.
the deadline for this
from the
submission of this? When should they submit?
Blog article, February 28th, ma'am.
End of this week.
Yeah.
So, Dr.
And
Indira, I think the only practical thing that can be done is that on 2nd we can extend little time and take those who are ready, we can take their presentation, and the 9th also we can extend time. No,
Yeah.
8th would be difficult. 8th March we have so many programs I'm not attending. There are so many city-based. It's the 50th year of women's movement in Maharashtra, and I'm not going in person because of our program. But I think we can 9th we can extend. 9th
Yeah.
and 2nd, if we get 2 sessions within which 40 presentations can be taken up, that is doable. No?
Yeah.
20 in. So how many of them will be ready on 2nd March? And how many? So I think that last time you had made a group, no, for feminist foreign policy. Similarly, in the WhatsApp group, you also take the this thing, no, consent, that if 20 people are ready, 20 fellows are ready to make presentation on 2nd March, and another 20 on the 9th March after the presentation. At least it is crowded, but we are ready to sit longer. No?
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. We'll provide all these details on the WhatsApp group, and we'll circulate via email as well.
Yeah. So how many are ready? So you have a name of the people and the timetable also, that each one would make the presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
2nd and 9th, I have blocked. So whatever. So I'm adding 1 more hour. So it is from 3, instead of 3 to 5, we will make 3 to 6. No?
Yes.
Yeah, fine. So even on 2nd, I'll make 3 to 6.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. And that's it from our side also. With that, I think I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah.
Yes, so I now invite Vibhuti ma'am for the delivering the closing remarks for today's session. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. So, Ria, thank you. And I think today was a very important session that we had because we are the first time we focused so seriously and had an in-depth knowledge on the things that are happening in the farm sector. Farm sector is always mentioned as a whenever the farmers commit suicide, or we talked about women farmers mainly as a farmer's wife or farmer's daughter or farmer's mother, but we never call women a farmer. So that way, Professor Alka's presentation, which was data driven and so many case studies and examples she gave, that's very important. So I think operationalize the definition of farmers has been a central demand of Mahila Kisan Adhikar Manch. And they have also come up with the Charter of Demand, which takes care of women's entitlement, women farmers' entitlement, and the support to farming that they need from the state policies, which are related to loan and various types of inputs from the state, right from the water from irrigation and tube well and subsidized seed and subsidized fertilizer, all that. They have also raised demands related to land rights, because land rights has become a central issue in the 21st century for women in the agriculture throughout the world. Food and Agricultural Organization has also said that the future of food sovereignty and food security rest in the hands of women. But though women do all the drudgery prone tasks, they don't get anything. So women have now started demanding extension services from the government programs. Then the collectives they have formed, farmers collectives, seed savers collectives. They have created the administrative setup through their self-help organizations. They have started pressurizing the women in Panchayati Raj institutions, because you have a 50% women in the local self-government bodies in the villages of India. So there also the taking women farmers issues through the Panchayat Fund are very important. The question of market access, so many new experiments have come. Department of Science and Technology is providing a latest technology and simple harvesting of latest technology, whether it is about tissue culture, and the gender responsive budget of the Ministry of Science and Technology also reaches out to women. And also the question forward and backward linkages are very important, because you need backward linkages to get the raw material, and you also need forward linkages to sell whatever produce you have had. So community radios are very important. We have seen how the youth organizations in Jharkhand and Bihar and in the rural areas, they use the community radios, FM radios, to reach out to farmers, and especially women farmers who can't read and write, through the radio, and tell them that not to do distress selling, because main thing is a distress selling. The moment your crop is ready, you don't have preservative, you don't have refrigeration, you don't have facilities to keep your crop or your vegetables or your fruits for a longer, more than 3 or 4 days. And that is the time all the predators, they cheat and fleece them. We have also seen how the farmers have been forced to sell their potato for 10 paise per kg and 5 paise per kg tomatoes. I have seen with my own eyes that has happened. So that is why the cooperative and some of the new progressive laws where farmers can directly sell to the consumers. So that so many state governments have removed those restrictions. So you can directly, 4 or 5 farmers come together, they hire a tempo, they bring the material, their products directly to the city urban centers where they have a contact. So all these new ways in which women are using the networks, that's very important. Also, along with the farming, you also need Jinarega, very important, because in so many areas, the Indian agriculture largely is a rain-fed. So for 4 months of monsoon, you have work. But what do you do about remaining 8 months? So the distress migration takes place at that. So if you have a Narega, the employment guarantee scheme in your own area and in your own villages, you also create assets in terms of roads and well and water bodies and whatever the village is required. And you also get a job, so that you don't have to go to other place for job. So universal coverage for social security scheme has also been the demand of women farmers, and also the budgetary allocation on gender budget every year for past 10 years. Makam submits its own charter of demand for the agriculture ministry's budget. So I think that kind of awareness that you see in the farm sector now, because of the organized attempt of women at a national level and also local level, the question of women who own land and women who work on the farm, that means agriculture laborers and also marginal farmers, they may have 1 or 2 acre of land, but they also work as agriculture laborers in other people's farms. So minimum wages for the agriculture workers, equality of wages, equal pay for equal work, that too women have started demanding, that why is she paid 80 rupees when men are getting 300 rupees in the farm sector. Livestock bearer and Alka brought out very well that most of the work, 99% of the work of livestock rearing and carrying is done by women, but still they don't. When it comes to selling, for the whole transaction is mediated by men. Same in the fisheries and other allied sectors, sericulture, that we see that women are supplementing in the farm sector also, women are supplementing their income by doing, along with the cultivation work, they also do lot of other work like sericulture or pisciculture or working for the cottage industry or working in some other people's farm. So I think it is important to know, and how can we use our knowledge, our position, our privilege, our power to reach out to these women and have a non-exploitative rural-urban relationship, because that is what Chaudhary Charan Singh ji wrote, Bharat versus India. India is exploiting Bharat. So if we don't want to do that, we also need to learn a lot from the farmer struggles, which took place during 2021. There are 4 or 5 films, documentaries are also made about that. And first time we saw so many stereotypes about women farmers were broken, because men were in Delhi, at the outskirts of Delhi, and women they managed farm completely. They were also using plows. They were also using tractors. And we saw so many women coming in a tractor, the young women driving tractor. So things are changing slowly and gradually in the farm sector. And we have to establish, our effort should be to establish the solidarity between rural and urban women. Thank you. Professor Indira, your observations. And I think in the southern India, there may be many other
I just missed her presentation. But what I observe is, most of the agriculture policies, first of all, in Karnataka, I think agriculture policy is completely gender blind. There is no specific, mention about women farmers. And it is completely, that's what I observe. So we really need to pressurize to put these issues in the policy, agriculture policy, when policies are made. And some NGOs are making some efforts in reaching out to the women farmers, and especially in tribal areas, collection of tribal, promoting a small garden in their house. But, they're at the micro level. But what we need is, we need a specific mention about women farmers in our policies, in related policies, agriculture, not only agriculture policy, but also the marketing. So I think we need to, it's also a research topic. One can work on it, and, how to engender our agriculture policy. Maybe on some of you young researchers can look into this and in different sectors, and, bring out what has to be included when we are talking about a specific policy for agriculture sector. See, in industrial sector, and we talk about how women are to be in the board, and some made it compulsory for the board to have so much of women, representation of women. Such things are there, but whereas in agriculture, at least I have not come across any reason. And as far as research is concerned, I think IMPRI, they are doing some work. Food Policy Research Institute, women in millets and such kind of things. But I don't, of course, Orissa also, a lot of work is going on, women in agriculture. Women in agriculture, there is an institute.
So plantation, women in plantation sector,
Women in
coffee
plantation
plantation,
also is there.
rubber plantation, tea
Rubber
plantations.
plantation is there.
Patterns are the same patterns you see.
Yeah.
Hard work,
Research is going on,
backbreaking
but
work
those,
and no.
yeah. Such a research is going on, but somebody can do actual women in agriculture, bring out what, in which direction research is going. How far the inputs have gone into the policy. So maybe young researchers can take it up for the how to integrate women gender concerns in, not necessarily women, gender concerns in agriculture policies. Thanks, Vibhuti.
Yeah.
Thank you. So,
Thank you, Vibhuti ma'am and Indira ma'am, for sharing the closing remarks, which provide profound insights into today's discussion and highlighted the key perspectives on the session's themes. So this concludes the day 8 of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship, Cohort 2.0. And as we come to the day 8 of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship, Cohort 2.0, an online National Winter School program, a 4-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program, Idea Rawat, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center, New Delhi. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed experts for day 8, that is Professor Alka Parikh ji, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, and Professor M. Indira ji, for generously sharing their time and expertise. The insightful contributions have greatly enriched this online certificate program, providing participants with a deeper understanding of the subject. We thank all our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. Readings of the session will be shared in your email, and a video of the session will also be shared with you for learning. We eagerly await your presence in the upcoming sessions scheduled every Sunday and for the special session on March 8th, that is International Women's Day. We are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube, listening to us on our various podcasts, and reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future IMPRI's Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning programs. Wish you a very good evening. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ria, for moderating the session. So that
Thank you, ma'am.
yeah. Thank you, Priya. Thank you.
Thank you.